Greetings and salutations. This is Rick Koppel, and I'm checking in on my video blog for Parkinson's to get you some updates, let you know what's going on. So let's get into it, because we got a lot of stuff to go over real quick. One thing I need to go over is the Amantadine trial and my progress on the disability benefits and what all that means. Health insurance, and also my testing and seeing the timing of Sinemet to help dyskenisia a little bit better, which I've got a minor touch of it right at the moment, so that's why I'm wiggling around a little bit. It's not drastic at this point like it tends to get sometimes, so I thought I'd get this in before it got bad. Anyway, let's start with the Amantadine trial. As you may know, in previous post in the blog as well as video blog, I signed up to do an Amantadine ER trial, extended release version of Amantadine. So I had to get off of Amantadine that I was on back in June through December. And and the process of that seemed like my Parkinson's symptoms got worse, so that I had to start taking twice the amount of Sinemet as I was before I started Amantadine, which I've heard can happen. I was kind of hoping maybe that was just a temporary thing that my body would come back from, but it really hasn't happened. I'm still having to take double the dose of Sinemet in order to maintain some normalcy, aside from the dyskinesia effect, which is probably about as bad as it's ever been in regard to what happens, but that's probably because now I'm on double dose of Sinemet instead of just single dose. So what happened is that as I was taking the initial test and lab work for the trial, which they had to start out with a basic level, so they want to see where you're at before you started taking the medication, it came up that I had a low platelet count, and they did another test, and they wanted to make sure that there wasn't a problem, that underlying problem I needed to address before I started the trial. So the start of the trial was delayed as I went to a doctor, and they did a lot of blood tests and determined that it was just idiopathic chronic low platelet count, but it wasn't anything critical, no leukemia to speak of. He says the risk for that is very, very low. He says there's one type of leukemia that's very rare that would result in a low platelet count and not affect the white blood cell and red blood cell accounts starting out. So any other kind of leukemia, which the majority of them would be, you would have seen low red cell counts and low white blood cell counts and things like that, the irregularities in the blood, but none of that showed up. Everything else looked normal, just except for the low platelet count. So the result is that I'm getting re-baselined Monday for my beginning the trial again, and hopefully we'll soon start it. And if I'm lucky, cross your fingers, pray, I won't get the placebo, and I'll actually get the medication, and it will help some, I hope, especially with the dyskinesia. So we'll see how that goes. Anyway, that's where we stand with that, and so I'll let you know more when the trial starts later on. The other thing, get these things out of the way so I can talk about what I primarily wanted to talk about, which was exercise. Disability benefits. Back in November, I applied for disability benefits. This past week, I received a letter saying that I was approved, which I was kind of somewhat surprised, because I really expected from what everybody says to be rejected immediately and have to apply 2 or 3 times and that kind of thing. But as it happened, it didn't happen that way, and I got on the first shot, which is pretty good. I've heard about 40% of people do. Apparently I was one of the 40%, and which is good, because I didn't know what basis I would have to call for another shot at it, but as it turned out, I don't have to worry about that. Now, the confusion that I had was that I got disability confused with SSI, and my son actually has SSI because of his mental health issues and inability to hold down a job because of it. And with SSI, you get Medicaid that comes along with that. Regular disability, that's not automatic. You have to apply for the other benefits separately. And so I had two options, it appeared, if I wanted to get more than just disability payments. If I wanted some health insurance, I've actually got to either apply for SSI too, or directly for Medicaid, which I'm taking the latter option, because I think if I get SSI, it just basically reduces down 1-to-1 my disability benefits, and I don't know if it'd be that much advantage to me to get SSI in addition to disability. And so I'm looking into just applying to Medicaid directly. But even if that doesn't pan out, what does happen is within 24 months of being on disability, like I am now, Medicare would kick in, which means since my disability is officially registered as having started on March 1st of last year, this coming March 1st would be my 1-year mark. So I'd have another year to go without getting any health insurance if I wanted to just wait on the Medicare part of it that would kick in another year, and just struggle through for this coming years with what I can. The downside of that is, this is where it starts to get a little bit complicated, is that with the disability payments that I'm going to be getting, there's a good chance it would kick me out of most of the patient assistance programs I'm on. I'm probably making too much money. There's always a catch. You make too much money, you don't get the other benefits. If you struggle financially, then you get these other benefits to help out with these things. So kind of a catch-22 in a sense, which means I would need to get some kind of health insurance for me, at least for a year, if I wanted to cover those things. The other thing would simply be to save that money and pay through the nose for whatever doctor visits I get in this coming year, and waiting for Medicare. But I'm going to see if I can apply for Medicaid, which might cover me through the next year. And so we're debating our options at this point. And one of the things we're looking into too is the shared cost group things that are out there, mostly for Christians, which I'm one, so that puts me in the running for it. And the only thing so far, it seems like most of those don't cover maintenance type care, which predominant part of Parkinson's is maintenance, not type care, if I'm reading their information correctly. There's not a lot of incidents in Parkinson's. It's just a gradual increase in symptoms and taking medications to try to combat those symptoms. So I don't know about that. Which leads to the deep brain stimulation. I'm trying to see if I get on Medicare or Medicaid, I think that would be covered under their thing. So still waiting to try to figure that part out. Now, the Sinemet timing, when I was taking Sinemet and I increased my dosage, and dyskenisia would get bad at certain points. Usually, from what I can figure out, and the timing lately, is I take a dose of the double dose of Sinemet, and then it runs for a few hours, and for about 2 to 3 hours I'm feeling pretty decent, kind of like now, where Even though I might have a little bit of dyskinesia, it's not that noticeable, and my tremors are fairly steady, so I can do things, I can type a little bit easier, all those kind of things. Then in approximately 2 to 3 hours after I take that, I start getting dyskinesia. It starts getting worse, the whole head bobbing thing that you saw last time on the video. And sometimes it can get pretty bad, and my neck starts getting tired and those kind of things. Sometimes I have to lay down. Sometimes I just push through it with whatever I'm doing. The typing is really hard at that point because it seems like the more I try to type, the worse the dyskinesia gets. So sometimes I have to take a break from that. But if I'm working with other odd things and physical labor, sometimes it makes it harder to do. But usually I can push through it. I may not go as fast as I want to go with it. Anyway, that's what's happening. So I was trying to, now that I'm on the double dose of Sinemet, I was going to try to see if the timing, the Sinemet, 3 hours apart, one pill instead of 2 pills for 5 to 6 hours, would help with dyskinesia, keeping the Sinemet level in my body at a steadier level rather than going a big peak and drop. And as it seems to result, it didn't seem to help a lot. I mean, I think maybe the dyskinesia got a little bit better, but it seemed like it more just kind of overlapped the dyskinesia. And so it seemed like I had more dyskinesia for longer periods of time on that. Consequently, it didn't seem to help the tremors as well taking it that way. So I had less on time where I was feeling normal. And so after about a week of doing that test, I decided that, this isn't going to work, and I'll just go back to taking 2 pills at a time. At least there's a good window of time each 5 to 6 hours that I take the dose where I'm semi-normal, if people want to consider me normal at all, which there would be some debate about that. Anyway, that's where I found out with that. I'm landing back on just taking 2 pills at a shot and dealing with the dyskinesia that comes from. And hopefully, when I start on the Amantadine trial this coming few weeks, I'll get the real thing, and hopefully it will actually help. We'll see. So that's where we stand with that. Now, what I really want to talk about, and this coming is about this time last year that I signed up for classes at my local Y, or I signed up to be a member of the local Y, and started doing classes, exercise classes. Because I had read, and as I mentioned in the blog before, that cardio exercise particularly is very good for cognitive support, and actually studies have shown that it's slowed down the progression of Parkinson's in the brain, which is where, of course, Parkinson's originates, killing off brain cells. So I wanted to predominantly get into cardio, and I found out, as I mentioned before, that one of the best types of cardio is cardio that has varied movements, aka dancing, because then you're not just doing a repetitive movement. Any kind of cardio is going to be helpful for brain stuff, but the varied movements involves your brain function more in coordinating and balance and things of that nature, which is also really critical for Parkinson's. So it's just a more overall beneficial type of cardio exercise to do that. And so consequently I did something as I'd never done before, which was decided to do some kind of dancing. I've never been a dancer in my life, and usually shied away from it. But of course this isn't dancing to dance, this is dancing to save my brain. So I figured this was a good motivation to do it, and consequently I started out Zumba classes in the Y back at the end of last February or beginning of March. I can't remember exactly when it was. And the result was that I've been doing, on average, 3 to 4 classes of Zumba a week since then, pretty faithfully, as the people there can testify. And I also added on that Pilates, which helps a lot of core strengthening. And I also, in October, I think it was, or beginning of November, started adding on body step and body pump. And the body pump has really helped since then with strengthening my muscles, which have been growing weak. So I'll mention a little bit about that. What I want to talk about in is my past year of doing all these exercises, what benefits I've noticed, which are really have been some real benefits that have shown up due to that. One is just my energy level has improved. As a matter of fact, last time, a couple of times, people have taken my pulse at the doctor's office. They asked me, is your pulse always this low at 58 beats per minute? And I say, well, yeah, lately it has been because I've been doing a lot of exercise. And so my heart apparently is in good shape and healthy and being very efficient at this point. So notice that benefit. And one of the things that I noticed as a benefit was, as I've probably mentioned before in my blog, is that there's a lot of issues with bladder control with Parkinson, and somewhat bowel control as well is mixed in there. And I was having some of those problems. Back in November of 2014, when I went on a trip to Mississippi to visit my daughter and son-in-law and grandkids, I was having to do frequent stops on the 10-hour trip, and sometimes I was in a very desperate state to get to places, and sometimes there was a little bit where I didn't quite make it in time. And I never had that drastic of a problem with bladder control, but really Parkinson affected me that way. Now this last November, when we went on the same trip to Mississippi, I was quite normal. I didn't have any issues. I could hold it well until we came to the next stop. I wasn't constantly feeling like I needed to go pee after having only gone pee for an hour ago or so. So I was able to wait until we stopped at a normal time and all that good stuff. And that's when I realized, hey, my bladder control's gotten a lot better this past year. And at first I didn't know why that had happened. I figured, what had I taken that caused that? And then it just dawned on me a few weeks ago, bladder control problems as well as bowel control problems are predominantly due to the fact that muscles in those regions start weakening due to Parkinson's. And so you're not able to control it with your muscles as well as you used to be. And especially doing the Pilates, which is a core strengthening series of exercises, that has actually improved my bladder control. So that's one definite thing. Now I still have a few issues here and there with that, but it's nothing like it was before. And so I'm feeling quite normal. And one of the other big factors I've noticed is since I started doing body pump, and there's other exercises that I do, other classes that coordinate with this, but body pump is basically lifting weights a lot for an hour and tiring out your muscles. A lot of squats with weights on your back, lunges with weights on your back, although I don't tend to do the lunges with the weights on very often just because my legs are not at that level yet. And several other types of exercise with the biceps and triceps and all the steps you can think of probably. It tries to cover all the major muscle groupings and lifting weights. Anyway, I've been doing that since November, and I can tell that my strength has really improved. As a matter of fact, the thing I noticed it most on was when I swam underwater in the swimming pool. Before, I noticed that I didn't have the ability to stay under as well, and I couldn't move as fast as I used to be able to move, and it seemed like I tended to float back up to the top. And since I've been doing body pump, that has all come back. I'm now able to zoom for long periods of time underwater and go quickly, and so I could tell my strength had come back into my legs and my arms to do that. And that's improved other aspects of Parkinson's, because bradykinesia, which is the slowing down aspect and the smaller steps, things like that, is a lot due to the quick degeneration of your muscles, and your body's not keeping up with adjusting to that. So your steps become smaller. You start slowing down. Like when I do help Juanita on occasion with cleaning a house, I was going slow before, and I felt like I was going at a normal pace, but reality is that I was slow. And even when I pushed it, it seemed like I wasn't going quite as fast as what I thought I was going. And since the strengthening with the thing, I've been able to pick up the pace quite a bit. And I'm almost back semi-normal in quickness and steps and stuff. Matter of fact, the doctor, last time I was at the office, noticed that my left arm, when I walked, was swinging, which my left arm is my rigid arm, and tends to just, in a lot of patients, the rigidity tends to force it not to swing when you're walking, so you have an abnormal gait. And he was surprised. Of course, I think some of that was because my medication was on at the time he was testing me. But I also told him then, that's probably due to all the working out I did and strengthening the muscles, and so it helps reduce the slowness. The gait's improved. Several other factors of that nature. So the strengthening aspect, counteracting the muscle degeneration of Parkinson's, has been quite helpful in several aspects of symptoms that I was developing that have reversed at this point. So, that's the nice thing, is I actually found something that actually reversed symptoms in Parkinson's. Now, eventually, I'll lose out, assuming I don't get cured or the cure doesn't come about. Who knows what other aspects might come about. But for now, and currently I've actually started picking up on doing a little pickleball on the side too, which, if you don't know what that is, look it up on Google. It's kind of a combination of badminton, ping pong, and tennis. But I won't go into that now. You can look it up and find out more about it. But it involves a lot of tennis-like activity. So I'm just keeping a lot of exercise, doing about 9 hours altogether on average every week. And I guess I'm thankful that I don't have a job in that respect, because that means I can devote the time to doing all this exercise, which if I was working a full-time job like my wife is, I probably couldn't do as much. So that has been helpful, and I thought I'd update you and let you know about that situation. So I'm surviving and not doing too bad. The only downtimes I have is when the dyskinesia gets bad. Sometimes it's worse than other times too. It's not always horrible, and sometimes it gets pretty bad where I pretty much need to sit down and rest for a bit. But that's life at this point. So anyway, this has gone on long enough. It's longer than I usually go for one of these, but I had a lot of stuff to cover. And hopefully it's been somewhat interesting if you're interested in my daily life and what's going on with me and Parkinson's, which now you know. A lot of doctor visits, a lot of stuff going on, and I'll update you next time on where we're at. Thanks for listening. Bye.